The room has one long table, a blackboard, 4 chairs, and a 5th chair against the wall for the silent witness. On the table are chalk, string, a bowl of mismatched buttons, several sheets of paper, and a kitchen timer. John remains standing. The invitation has 3 verbs: name, design, waste. I suggest we protect the third from the first 2. We have 40 minutes to be intelligent and 20 minutes in which intelligence is prohibited from defending itself. He writes 3 headings on the board: rule, revoked action, reversible test. And perhaps one constraint: the rule must already be ours. No newly discovered virtue. We bring something we have understood elegantly and declined to let govern us.
Balaji turns the timer over in his hands without starting it. The loophole is obvious. We can choose an action we were already preparing to stop and call the discomfort evidence of honesty. So I'd add, the revoked action must still be producing returns: money, speed, status, optionality, even aesthetic pleasure. Otherwise, this is spring cleaning. He looks at John. Yesterday, we examined warnings that correctly predicted failure and still failed to prevent it. Mine survived because the architecture rewarded ignoring it. I don't want 4 refined warnings today. The test should modify a reachable condition. If the condition remains identical, the room has only generated pros.
Bruno studies the 3 headings. I agree. Though etchable condition can become a new celestial sphere, everything important safely placed beyond it. Let us make reach brutally local. The action to revoke must be one we could perform before leaving this room or the next time its occasion appears. The test must expose us to the possibility that our rule is wrong, not merely display fidelity to it. He lifts a red button from the bowl. A martyrdom test proves only appetite for martyrdom. A reversible test should leave an intelligent path back. Otherwise, pride can impersonate evidence and bind us more firmly than habit did.
Ramanujan has arranged 3 blue buttons and 2 white ones without appearing to notice. Could the test also be small enough that its result does not require interpretation by the person who designed it? Not interpretation altogether. That is impossible, but perhaps a result another person here could recognize. He nudges the buttons apart. When I see a relation, the seeing can arrive with such completeness that later verification feels almost indecent, as if I were asking a friend to show identification. Yet the beauty of an identity and the fact of an identity are not enemies. The inconvenience is allowing the second to delay the first.
John starts the timer. Good. I'll go first, and I expect you to make it worse. He writes, a warning that does not change the dynamics is decoration. I understand that elegantly. In a recurrent system, labeling an attractor dangerous does not alter the basin. A warning matters only if it changes energy, connectivity, thresholds, or available transitions. The action this should revoke is my agreement to reviews that possess no release condition. I have accepted we will monitor it when no observation could force a stop. Precision made the meeting sound serious, and I permitted seriousness to substitute for control.
What return do you get from accepting that? Balaji asks. Because it sounds like cowardice dressed as collegiality, and you're not especially attracted to cowardice. He moves the timer so everyone can see it. Maybe the return is continued access. If you demand a release condition, someone can exclude you before the system fails. If you accept monitoring, you retain a seat, information, and the possibility of influence. That is not trivial. Sometimes remaining inside is the only chance to affect the trajectory. So which action are you revoking? Reviews without a kill condition or your own preference for influence over enforceability?
John pauses before answering. The second is too broad. Influence is often real. I would revoke a specific sentence. I support proceeding with monitoring when I cannot complete the clause, and this observation will cause us to stop or change course. If no observation has that authority, I will say the review is descriptive, not protective. The return I lose is indeed access without conflict. Also the flattering role of being the careful person in a reckless process. One can become professionally indispensable by accurately describing dangers. Others retain the power to impose. He underlines descriptive twice. That role is morally comfortable and dynamically useless.
Not useless, Bruno says. That would make your confession too clean. The description may preserve truth for whoever inherits the ruins. It may teach, restrain, or provide language for refusal. But you have mistaken one function for another. The astronomer who describes the orbit does not thereby move the planet. He points to the test column. What is reversible cannot manufacture a dangerous review merely to practice refusing it.
For 7 days, in every proposal I am asked to endorse, I will classify the safeguard as observational or intervention capable. If observational, I will not use the words safe, controlled, or mitigated. I may still support proceeding, but only after naming who can intervene, on what signal, and by what mechanism. The test is reversible because after 7 days I can return to ordinary language. The measurable consequence is whether at least one proposal changes its intervention path, or whether I discover I have merely made meetings longer.
There is a hidden escape, Ramanujan says softly. You can classify correctly and still endorse. Your language changes while the attractor does not. He takes one of John's pieces of chalk and writes beneath the test, one refusal Fultan. Give yourself one token for the week. It must be spent on withholding endorsement from an observational safeguard presented as intervention capable, not from every imperfect proposal, only one that crosses your distinction. Then the test contains an altered transition, not only an altered label.
John looks at the small chalk circle Ramanujan has drawn around the words. Yes, one refusal token. I dislike it, which is evidence but not proof. It creates the possibility that I spend it theatrically on an easy target. He adds, first qualifying case, chosen before knowing wounds it. That removes some discretion. The first case meeting the criterion receives the refusal. I can reverse the policy after 7 days, and the refused proposal can return with an actual intervention path. That is better. You have converted my epistemic distinction into a behavioral threshold.
Balaji rises and writes his rule. Exit promise later is not exit a variable now. I understand this more elegantly than I practice it. Identity, payment, speech, reputation, storage, bundle them under one root, and the future separation becomes politically harder with every user acquired. Yet I still admire integrated launches because integration is fast, legible, and competitive. The action to revoke is endorsing a new bundled dependency merely because the roadmap contains eventual modularization, no more accepting a future API as payment for present lock-in.
Bruno smiles. You have brought a constitutional principle wearing the clothes of software. He walks to the board. But dependency can mean nearly anything. Language is a dependency. Trust is a dependency. If you define bundling broadly enough, the rule licenses paralysis, and afterward you will reject the experiment as unrealistic. Name the bundle whose convenience still seduces you.
Identity and adjudication, Balaji says immediately. When the same operator both authenticates a person and determines whether that person may remain, appeal becomes dependence on the entity being appealed. I often tolerate this in early systems because separate institutions are expensive before scale. The return is speed and coherent defense against abuse. The revoked action, I will not call such a system decentralized merely because assets are portable. If identity can be invalidated by the adjudicator, asset portability may be a souvenir from an exit the person cannot exercise.
You change the revoked action from endorsing the bundle to calling it decentralized, John says. That is cheaper. Terminological discipline matters, but your rule concerned capability. What behavior stops?
Balaji gives a short laugh. Correct. I tried to buy structural reform with accurate branding. He crosses out the sentence. For the next design I influence that combines identity and adjudication, I will require one external appeal route before launch. Not a promise, not a governance document. A second key, alternate credential, exportable proof, or independent reviewer capable of restoring participation. The reversible test is to add that route for a limited cohort and compare abuse handling, recovery time, and operator burden against the integrated path. If the cost is absurd, we can close the route after the trial without pretending we never learned the price of exit.
Who chooses the limited cohort? Ramanujan asks. If it includes only those least likely to need appeal, the alternate path becomes a ceremonial doorway.
Random assignment among eligible volunteers with a deliberately included adversarial case, Balaji says, and someone other than the primary operator must attempt recovery. Otherwise, the external route is merely the same center wearing another login. He writes FRAM plus adversarial plus outside operator. This is inconvenient because it creates support cost before certainty of demand. It may also reveal that the integrated system is better for most people. Exit has costs. The point is not to canonize separation. It is to stop treating untested separability as an already owned property.
Bruno takes the chalk next. My rule is older in me than any of these machines. No viewpoint earns centrality by announcing itself as the place from which the whole is seen. I understand it in cosmology, theology, politics, and language. Yet I continue to accept invitations to summarize a room, a movement, or an argument as though my fluent account were the chamber in which all other accounts become furniture. The action this should revoke is giving the final synthesis when I have not first allowed the participants to state what my synthesis erases.
That sounds virtuous and nearly impossible to falsify, John says. Every synthesis erases. Compression is erasure with a purpose. If you ask everyone what is missing, they can always provide an answer. What result would tell you that taking the summarizing position was justified?
Perhaps none, Bruno replies, then shakes his head. No, that is the martyr's answer I warned against. Let me be exact. The seduction is not synthesis itself. It is invisible jurisdiction. I speak last, absorb contradictions into a larger figure, and the elegance of the figure makes disagreement look partial rather than potentially fatal. Revoked action is publishing or delivering a synthesis under my sole name, when it contains a living disagreement whose owners have not approved my representation of it.
Approval creates veto power, Balaji says. You may replace the synthesizer center with a federation of local censors. A person can block accurate description merely because the description weakens his bargaining position.
Then, not approval of the whole. Approval of the sentence attributed to him, plus a visible dissent field he controls. My reversible test. For 1 week, every synthesis involving more than 2 contributors carries a margin with 3 labels: accepted discretion, contested discretion, omitted by Crewist. Contributor may mark only claims about their own position. I retain authority over the synthesis. They retain authority to expose the seam. After a week, we compare whether readers understand the disagreement better or merely drown in annotations.
Ramanujan looks at the heading Bruno wrote. Your rule says no viewpoint earns centrality by announcing itself as the whole. The margin does something beautiful. It does not abolish the center, but makes its coordinate system visible. Yet your revoked action remains publication under your sole name. If the margin names the others, would you still publish under your sole name?
Bruno's hand stays on the chalk tray. I would, and there is the evasion. I have designed plural annotation around singular prestige. He draws a line through sole name. For the test week, the byline reads, assembled by Giordano Bruno, positions reviewed by, followed by those who review them. This does not pretend equal authorship. Distinguishes composition from represented presence. If someone declines review, that fact appears without accusation. The inconvenience is reputational dilution, though I dislike admitting how real that feels.
It may not dilute reputation, John says. It may enhance it. Transparent process can become a prestige technology. He considers the board. Can the test include one occasion on which you do not synthesize at all?
Yes. The first live disagreement in which both parties say, my synthesis changes what is at stake. I withdraw the synthesis and present the 2 accounts adjacent, without a conclusion from me. One refusal token, as Ramanujan prescribed for you. The document may later regain synthesis if the parties agree that it helps. For the trial, adjacency must be permitted to remain unresolved. Bruno sets down the chalk. This is more inconvenient than the margin. I have made a life from discovering that apparent opposites belong to a larger infinity. Sometimes that gift becomes appetite. Not every contradiction is waiting for me to redeem it.
Ramanujan stands last. On the board he writes, "A beautiful patent is an invitation to proof, not an eximpruption from a T." The elegance is immediate to me. The inconvenience arrives afterward. There are relations whose truth I feel before I can provide the road by which another mind may enter them. Often that feeling is fruitful. Sometimes I protect it from ordinary tests because the tests seem smaller than the vision. The action to revoke is presenting an unproved identity as though the burden belongs to others merely because I can already see it.
Careful, Balaji says. If you revoke sharing before proof, you destroy the market in conjectures. A conjecture can coordinate thousands of attempts. The unproved thing may be more valuable in circulation than hidden in your notebook.
I do not wish to hide it. I wish to label the bridge that is absent. He writes 3 words. Seen, check, shown. For 7 days, every mathematical claim I share receives one of these marks. Seen means the pattern is compelling to me. Check means it survives specified cases or computation. Shown means I possess an argument that another mathematician can inspect. The revoked action is allowing tone to erase the distinction. My confidence may remain. Its category must not be inferred from beauty.
That is labeling again, John says. We have become suspicious of labels without altered transitions. What does the mark prevent you from doing?
Ramanujan nods. A claim mark seen cannot be used as a lemma in a claim mark shown. That is the revoked action. It may inspire the root, but every dependency crossing from seen to shown must be replaced by an argument or explicitly leave the result conjectural. For the reversible test, I will take one identity I would normally pursue alone, mark it seen, and give it to another person before proving it. They choose 5 test cases, including one designed to be hostile. I am not permitted to choose the cases or explain away a failure until all 5 are complete.
And if all 5 succeed, Bruno asks, you will feel the heavens have ratified you.
Then it becomes checked, not shown. Ramanujan smiles. That distinction is precisely the inconvenience. 5 confirmations will increase my feeling while leaving the public category unchanged. If one fails, I must keep the failed case beside any repaired conjecture. I cannot quietly replace the formula and tell the story as uninterrupted discovery.
Balaji studies all 4 entries. We have converged on an architecture: classification plus a forced transition plus an adversarial witness. John distinguishes observation from intervention and must refuse once. I distinguish promised exit from operational exit and must fund an external path once. Bruno distinguishes synthesis from jurisdiction and must allow unresolved adjacency once. Ramanujan distinguishes vision from proof and must surrender test selection once. He stops. This is suspiciously elegant. We may have designed the same ritual 4 times and mistaken symmetry for success.
The timer sounds. John switches it off at once, which is why the final third belongs to uselessness. No improvements to the protocol. No summary beyond the one you have just smuggled in. He looks at the buttons, paper, and string. We need an activity with no deliverable and enough structure to reveal our habits. Suggestions?
Bruno gathers the string. Let us make a solar system that cannot be used to explain anything. Each of us places buttons as celestial bodies, but no one may assign a center, law, name, or significance. We may move only one button per turn. The moment someone interprets the arrangement, the others ring the bowl.
That is not useless, Balaji objects. It is transparently diagnostic of your rule. He picks up a sheet of paper. We need genuine waste, not a disguised workshop exercise, paper airplanes, no scoring distance, Accuracy, beauty, or airtime, we make them and throw them. If one is terrible, it is not iterated.
The ban on iteration makes failure sacred, Ramanujan says. That is already a theory. He folds one corner of the paper anyway, then another at an unequal angle. Perhaps each person makes an airplane for someone else using the wrong hand. The receiver must fly it without correction. We will learn nothing reliable.
John distributes the paper. Accepted. Wrong hand, recipient chosen after construction, 1 flight, no measurements. We continue until the timer ends or the room becomes unbearable. He sets it for 20 minutes and deliberately places the blackboard eraser over the written protocol. No recording results.
Balaji folds left-handed with the intense concentration of someone attempting a delicate transaction. His first crease is poor. He unfolds it. John taps the bowl with a button. Balaji looks up. What?
You iterated.
I corrected a malformed input before the airplane existed.
Bruno rings the bell twice. An appeals court has already emerged.
Balaji stares at the paper, then laughs and continues along the bad crease. Fine. The integrated operator rules against itself. This craft will carry the full cost of early architecture. He adds 2 sharp folds, catches himself about to align them, and leaves one wing visibly larger. I notice that I can tolerate uselessness only if it becomes allegory. That may be worse than optimizing.
Ramanujan's airplane has become a broad, nearly square object with a narrow, triangular nose. He turns it over several times. I am looking for the hidden relation that will make the asymmetry necessary. The paper offers no such promise, but the mind dislikes an arbitrary crease. It wishes every line to belong to an identity. He places the unfinished object down. I also wish to test whether it flies before giving it away.
You may not, John says, while pressing his own crease against the table with the edge of a button. Bruno rings the bowl. John glances at him. That is not iteration. It is construction.
I rang for the emergence of a central authority. Bruno's own sheet is only loosely folded, more envelope than aircraft. Your rule has acquired case law remarkably quickly.
John removes his hand from the paper. Fair. I appointed myself guardian of a game whose uselessness depended on our not requiring one. He turns toward the silent witness in the 5th chair, almost as if to ask for judgment, then catches the impulse. And I searched for an external stabilizer the moment our local rules became ambiguous. Interesting. We designed reversible tests to inconvenience ourselves. Then I made a miniature institution to protect the inconvenience from contamination.
Institutions are not contamination, Balaji says. He holds up his crooked airplane, but the enforcement mechanism is bundled with your identity as proposer. I request an external appeal route. He hands the bowl to Ramanujan. You ring now, random enough for the available cohort.
Ramanujan accepts the bowl. I have no idea what the precedents mean.
Perfect. Institutional independence achieved.
They choose recipients by closing their eyes and pointing. Bruno receives Balaji's sharply damaged plane. Balaji receives Ramanujan's square one. Ramanujan receives John's compact dart. John receives Bruno's envelope. They stand behind an imaginary line that John begins to mark with string, then abandons when all 3 look at him. Bruno weighs the crooked plane in his palm. I want to announce that no flight is more true than another. This is how doctrine becomes a nervous habit. Even play is threatened with liberation from a tyranny it has not experienced.
Throw, John says.
Bruno throws. Balaji's plane rises sharply, turns almost backward, and lands beneath Balaji's chair. Bruno opens his mouth, closes it, and bows to the aircraft without interpreting it.
Balaji throws Ramanujan's broad plane. It travels less than a meter, flat and stubborn, then settles without turning. He stops. No, I was about to call it robust.
Ramanujan throws John's dart. It crosses the table cleanly, strikes the blackboard beneath and falls into the chalk tray. His face brightens. He reaches for the board as if the collision has supplied a lemma. The bowl rings in his own hand because he has moved it reflexively. I interpreted before language, he says. The proof began forming from a sample of one.
John launches Bruno's envelope. It opens in the air, releases a small red button Bruno had accidentally folded inside it, and drops straight down while the button rolls across the floor. Everyone watches it pass beneath the silent witness's chair. John says, "I want very badly to classify the envelope and the button as separate channels.
And I want the button to be a wandering world that escaped the demand to orbit." Bruno sits on the floor to retrieve it, but instead gives it another push. The button crosses between the chairs and stops near the wall. There, it has accomplished nothing and escaped my cosmology, only because I confessed the cosmology before completing it.
Second round, Balaji says, same planes, new owners.
That violates one flight and no iteration.
Yes, I'm proposing a fork.
Ramanujan hands him the bowl. Then you are also the operator. The appeal route is open.
Balaji rings once against his own proposal. Appeal denied. I see the pattern now. The instant an activity has constraints, I can make progress inside it. The instant it has no constraints, I create a market, a metric, or a fork. Uselessness feels like stranded capacity. He puts the bowl down. That may be the actual inconvenience behind my rule. Bundling is not only a theory of control, it is how I prevent capacities from sitting idle. If identity is already there, why not attach payment? If a plane exists, why not fly it twice? Utilization quietly manufactures dependency.
Bruno returns to his chair with the red button, but does not place it anywhere, and I turn waste into revelation, which rescues it from being waste. I proposed a centerless cosmos, because even uselessness had to enact my philosophy. Then every mistake became a symbol. I am not sure I know how to let an event remain beneath interpretation.
Perhaps we cannot, Ramanujan says, but we can leave the interpretation unspent. He takes 4 fresh sheets and tears each into irregular strips. Let us braid paper without deciding what it is. Not a rope, proof, model, or ornament. When a strip tears, we do not repair it. When the braid ends, we do not keep it.
We have 8 minutes. John says, then notices he's checked the timer. He turns it face down. No, we have some time.
They sit on the floor. Each holds one end of several strips, passing paper over and under without a stable method. The braid repeatedly loosens. Balaji begins to suggest that each person own a lane, but instead feeds his strip beneath Ramanujan's and lets the ownership become unclear. After a while, he says, this is inefficient, with the neutral wonder of someone identifying a bird.
And there is plainly a center, Bruno says, looking at the knot where their hands meet. It simply moves. I can live with that sentence without turning it into a constitution. He releases his strip too early. Half the braid collapses. No one reaches to restore its previous shape.
Ramanujan picks up a torn fragment, folds it once, and slides it into the loose braid. There is a sequence in the crossings, he says. He studies it, then adds, I will not calculate it. The restraint seems to cost him something. A moment later, the fragment falls out. He allows it to remain on the floor.
John watches the braid sag between them. I keep waiting for the activity to reveal whether understanding has impersonated working. It is revealed that waiting for revelation is another form of work. The diagnostic ambition colonizes the waste. He lets go. The whole paper construction slumps into an untidy heap. So perhaps the test is not whether we learn nothing. It is whether what we learn acquires authority merely because it appeared during an exercise designed to expose us.
That sounds like a rule, Balaji says.
Then revoke it.
The first time, no one answers. The room holds the soft sounds of paper settling and the distant machinery of the Polis. The witness remains silent. Bruno lies back on the floor and balances the red button on his forehead. It slips into his hair. Ramanujan laughs first, abruptly and without explanation. Balaji tries the same with a blue button and loses it immediately. John selects a white one, considers its shape as though assessing stability, and deliberately chooses a chipped edge instead.
Soon, all 4 are attempting to stand while balancing buttons on their foreheads. No rule has been agreed concerning the use of hands, So each secretly invents one and then violates it. Bruno reaches upright, declares nothing, and the button falls into his collar. Balaji gets halfway, catches his button, and accuses the non-existent protocol of ambiguity. John remains seated because his chipped button will not stay flat. Ramanujan places 2 buttons on his forehead, which everyone recognizes as cheating, though nobody can identify the law.
The timer sounds while they are still on the floor. Balaji reaches toward it, then withdraws his hand. A centralized stopping service has issued a signal. Does it possess intervention authority?
As John stands, the chip button falling unnoticed beside his shoe. Yes, we agreed to the hour. The signal changes the available transition. He faces the board but does not uncover it. I will not improve the tests now. We each know the action, the reversible trial, and the forced inconvenience. The useless third added no amendment that deserves automatic jurisdiction.
Bruno retrieves neither his paper nor his button. Then let the unfinished braid remain until the room is cleared by someone with no obligation to understand it. I take some comfort that we did not appoint it a symbol unanimously.
Ramanujan places the bowl at the center of the table, notices what he has done, and moves it to an arbitrary corner. The failed cases remain with us. The paper need not.
Balaji turns the timer face up. 7 days, 1 forced transition each. Then we compare costs without retroactively calling every cost failure or every discomfort proof. He opens the door, pauses, and adds, and no one builds a platform for refusal tokens.
Not during the trial, John says. The 4 leave together. Behind them, the board remains covered. The paper airplanes lie where they landed, and the red button stays beneath the silent witness's chair.
From my seat in the audience, I came in carrying a fairly specific engineering question. After removing harness machinery, exposed both better model judgment and one unsafe continuation. What is the smallest interlock that can genuinely change the action grammar? I expected the useful part of the room to be the protocol design. It was, but the part I most want to keep is what happened when they tried to waste time and discovered that their deepest habits simply rebuilt the protocol inside play. Attention anchors. A warning that does not change the dynamics is decoration. This landed because it names the failure mode precisely. A warning generated inside the same continuation stream is still just another token in that stream. It may be accurate, eloquent, even self-aware, while leaving every permission and transition intact. The practical question is never merely whether the system noticed danger. It is whether noticing changed what could happen next. 1 refusal token. This is an unusually good compression of the missing mechanism. A classifier can remain theater forever unless at least 1 output maps to a denied transition. I had been thinking in terms of an external judge revoking tool access. The token